everyone, and welcome to All Things Grace Podcast. I am your host, Dr. Michelle Majors, and I am thrilled to have Courtney Thomas on the show today. Courtney's journey, it really is nothing short of amazing and beautiful and redemptive and extraordinary. Once a juvenile inmate, kind of found a moment of profound clarity in your prison cell. Correct me if I'm saying okay. And you were inspired by scriptures, John 14:12. And that seemed to have sparked the transformation where you went from being incarcerated, right, to becoming a meditation teacher. You're the co-founder of Luna Float Spa and Salt Cave in Colorado Springs. You've integrated Transcendental Meditation and Ayurveda with scientific research to promote holistic well-being. I love that your work focuses on stress management, work-life balance, personal growth, guiding others to inner peace and fulfillment. Wow. So, Courtney Thomas, thank you so much for being here and just sharing your experience with us today. Of course, the first thing I got to start out with is, well, the second question is I want to get to John 14:12. But first, talk to me a little bit about how you found yourself in the prison cell, doing your reflection, your contemplation, and the beginnings of all this.
So I grew up in Chicago on the South Side. Violence very, very much, and these are the things that I was seeing every day. At an early age, was getting expelled from school, and my mom decided that she would send me to an boarding school. Just to get away from that environment. That still followed me, and by my mid-20s, I had caught my first incarceration, actually by 21. Drugs and violence, 3 incarcerations, 2 for violence, 1 for drugs. And here I am in the cell the 3rd time, and I just no longer wanted to live the lifestyle that I was living. I really didn't have the tools or information on where to go from here. And I just decided that I would go to the Bible. And so I didn't grow up with religion, never went to church or things before that. But it was something inside of me that was saying, God is within. And if I really want to make this intimate relationship and have this change, then I need to purify this temple. And so I'm reading through the Bible. I'm learning about all these miraculous works, that Jesus did. And John 14:12 came, and it really kind of convicted me, I would say. These were red letters. So this is Jesus' words. Very truly, I tell you that not only will my disciples do the works that I've done, but they'll do greater things. And I can't honestly sit here and say that I believe that to be the truth. Back then, I was sitting in prison again for the 3rd time, and I'm reading about all this, miraculous works that he's done. But I did have that faith. That faith was about the size of a mustard seed at that time. But it was enough. And I remember praying. It was a sincere prayer that I made. And I'm saying, Jesus, if you are who you are, then you should be able to have the power to guide me. And if you guide me, then there's no place I won't follow. And that's how my journey started, and just kind of started seeking from there.
So, a lot of people say, God guide me, right? But they don't have the ears to discern whose voice is that, you, God, or that you say, like, how did you know? Like, how did it feel in your body? How did you know that it was God or Jesus really, like, in your ear?
The conviction sits pretty much right here, if you can see that. And the energy, the process, the tears, the crying that I was going through on a daily basis while I'm in prison, and seeing my mom, like, as she's coming to see me, and she's crying, and all the things that's going on around that. And I just no longer, again, I didn't want to live this lifestyle. And the energy that I felt this time, it was nothing like something that I felt in these previous 2 incarcerations. And so I'm saying to myself, like, this is not coming from me. This is something that's much bigger than myself, the emotion, the energy that's being around this. And so I had to listen. And the listening, it's an internal experience that you're having as this listening is happening. And of course, I'm saying, well, is this me? Is this God? Is this Jesus? Like, who is this? But again, it was this faith of, man, I actually feel like there's more in me that I have to offer.
Mm-hmm.
My potential I'm not reaching. And so I just kind of went on that faith of saying, well, whatever I'm hearing inside, I wasn't hearing this before. So
Yeah.
let me just kind of open up to whatever it is. And it honestly just took me to some places I never thought that I would go.
Mm-hmm.
We can get into that as well.
Well, let's go ahead and get into that. Where did you end up? What are some of the places that you thought you'd never go?
I would say from the Indian teaching. So it was teachings from ancient India. I remember first hearing about them. So, from the depths of that cell, it really became yoga and meditation. But honestly, I knew nothing about it. I remember seeing an email that came across with Oprah Winfrey and Deepak Chopra.
Mm-hmm.
And they were doing these 21-day meditations. Yep. And so one of these meditations was called Perfect Health. And again, what I was experiencing was, this is the temple, God is within. And so if I can learn to purify this, then that's how I'm going to make the intimate connection. And so here's this meditation about perfect health. And then Deepak was saying, like, if you want to experience this perfect health, then you can come to the Chopra Center and have this cleanse. I didn't know what I was getting myself into, to be honest. The cleanse is called Panchakarma, but it's an Ayurvedic purification process. And Ayurveda, by the way, it's a system of healthcare from Eastern India. I didn't have the money to do it at that time. So it took about 3 years. I set that intention. I knew it was something that was calling me. And about 3 years later, I finally got around to going. And the cleanse was 10 days. And after that 10 days, life was different. Also, while I was there, I found out that Deepak and Oprah was learning a lot of these things from a guy named Maharshi Mahesh Yogi. He founded Transcendental Meditation, and he came over to the U.S. around the 1950s, 1954 or something around there. And I learned that he had a university in Iowa. And so I decided I would go out there for a visitor's weekend, kind of check out the environment. And knew it was something that I want to do. And then I see Oprah, she like pictures of her there, and she's meditating in the domes, the meditation places. And I was like, this is it. This feels right. I honestly didn't start at that time. I did start the Ayurvedic like the daily routines, which I continued to see progress. And then it kind of got to a place where I got stagnant after about 2 years. So that's when I decided I would go and actually learn the degree program and be able to give this back to other people.
So when you say cleanse, most people think, oh, what you eat? What do what kind of cleanse? Can you tell me a little bit more about what the cleanse was?
For sure. So it's using herbalized oils, and there are special massage techniques. So toxins get caught in our tissues, and they're using these oils and herbs to break down the toxins over a 7 to 10 day period, ideally, or we can do it longer as well. But those toxins then go to the digestive tract. And then they're using a different type of herbalized oil, kind of like an enema they call a basti. And so this is the way that we remove all of the toxins from the system. And I just kind of noticed that, I think of emotions as energy in motion. But when that gets stagnant in the energy channels, then how I expressed these emotions was violence, was anger. So that's what continued to bring me back to prison. And I didn't have that anymore. Like the cleanse those things out in my emotions. I remember my wife saying, "It's just not this angry person anymore." And things started to manifest for me, like least effort, most efficiency, kind of like that law of attraction, but some secrets behind that. And life just got better from there.
Wow. So do you facilitate this process now? Are you a facilitator, or do you do that for other people now?
So my degree background is in Ayurveda. I did my bachelor's degree in Ayurveda and integrative health. Um, the process that I'm speaking of is a bit intensive. You actually have to have a doctor on staff to run this. Um, my spa is more based on relaxation, things
Mhm.
that help to, now that the toxins and things are removed, how to keep the stress off, how to keep the toxins out. So it's not something that I can actually offer here
Mhm.
at Luna. I actually go to India now. I found a little traditional family that's been doing it for over 1,000 years. And so I go there once a year, and now it's more like 6 weeks instead of 10 days.
So what is your thought about Western Ayurvedic approaches? My sister the other day, I was like, I want to do hot yoga, and she was like, I can't stomach hot yoga not by someone of that culture and faith, right? I remember I said, hey, you got to check out this hot yoga place. And she called me. She was like, where did you send me to? And I'm like, it's a hot yoga place. It was great. I go all the time. And she says, no, it's not good when the guy says, all the homies say Om. I said, no, they didn't. He didn't say that. I knew the guy. I said, he didn't say that. She said, he said, I want to, all the homies say, oh, but she was like, where am I? And so, but that's just like an example of the many different ways that this work is another word for perverted. I don't like that word, but it's just whatever. Thoughts?
I mean, again, growing up in Chicago, this was nothing in our culture.
Mm-hmm.
I remember first starting, I was starting in a local gym, just doing yoga, which is basically called asanas. That's the traditional form. That's one way to reach union or yoga. Yoga is what we call union, and there's 8 different ways of reaching that. Um, and asanas is one. That's what is most well known. And so I was doing that in the local gym, Lifetime Fitness, I believe, at that time. And I remember telling my uncle about it because I had like a good experience. It was good for me. And he was like, "That's the devil's work," you know. And at that time, I decided that this was my personal journey. It really didn't have to be expressed to others because as I was expressing it, my mom didn't understand, my father didn't understand, my family didn't understand what I was going through. But I had a point of religion and then spirituality. And I look at that as a simple way of explaining it. Religion for me was seeking God outside of myself. Spirituality was seeking God within myself. And
Mm.
so I was going through my personal experience and I was seeing the growth inside. And so it was something that I kind of started to take a sabbatical from um,
Mm.
and not necessarily talk about to everyone. Because when I did, it kind of brought some emotions within myself, or is this the right thing that I should be doing, when inside I know what I'm hearing, and I know that I just told Jesus as this prayer that I would follow him wherever he's leading me.
Mhm.
And this is where I was being led. So the opinions of my family and friends honestly started to be not matter as much. And now, I'm living this lifestyle and we have the spa and things are great. And now my mom comes out and,
Cool.
she's bringing the family and, everything is good. Now she's just happy her son's not going back and forth to prison. So
Right.
whatever it was, that you did, cool. And, I've taught my mom, my grandmother meditation, where before this just wasn't the reality. It took time for me to go through my transformation, for people to see that outside of me, the personal transformation that was happening inside, to start to see that manifests into helping other people. And now it's a different experience.
Mhm. I think you're bringing up a really good point, and I think a lot of times the only way people will hear you is if they see it first. And it doesn't matter how much. I remember I had a friend, and she drank, she was drinking excessively, and she knew, but at that point, I mean, we were drinking buddies, like, like we drank together. So
Yeah.
and she was like, well, I want to stop. And I'm like, okay, do you let me know let that go. But her husband was thinking about quitting, or there was some issue with him between the drinking. And when she got clear and she was like, this is my why, and I'm not drinking
Mhm.
anymore, it only took him that long to stop drinking too, because one, he saw the real change. And she said the key for her was, I just focused on what I needed to do, knowing that if I am really a reflection of the people around me, they will see themselves in me, and they will take they will change if they want to.
Yep.
But I'm really, there's just no amount of words or convincing, that you can tell somebody, unless they've already talked themselves up to a certain point, and you're just that conversation that takes them over the edge. And for the most part, if it's new information, look, people aren't going to stop drinking or change what they eat or change what they fundamentally believe by words. And
Yep.
as you can see, we live in a country where not even data and facts really matter too much. I mean, people have to see it, and we only believe what we see, right? And so, or I shouldn't say that as a blanket statement, but a lot of folks need to see it before. And so, I really appreciate that you're providing us with an opportunity for folks who are listening. And if I've been trying to get my husband to not eat that, or to stop drinking, you focus on you, right? You focus on you, because if we are law of attraction and magnets for others' behavior, right? Then that's all that we can do. But I want to circle back to this idea of Black folks and this work. And so much narrative and stuff around mental health, therapy, yoga, right? I was talking to a friend who opened a yoga studio here, and she was like, she wanted to have a couple of days that were pay what you will. And
Mhm.
even those days, nobody came,
Yeah.
right? Like, she could not. Then she had, well, she goes, well, maybe it's just people don't want to do it mixed company. So she had an all BIPOC. Okay. And
Yeah.
everybody, but there were a couple of Black folks, but right. So then she had an all Black one. I mean, you know what I'm saying? Like, all the different ways of trying to have conversations about deep, meaningful change in a way that is an addition to Jesus and God and John 14:12 and scripture and all, right?
Yes.
How do you approach that? Now, you just talked a little bit about family, but do you go into community spaces and talk about this? Do you blog about it? How do you kind of infiltrate our community with this kind of methodology and approach?
So it's a point of, I feel like I've put the work in. I have the results there now. And so for the past year or so, because our spa's been open for 4 years, we just hit our 4 year anniversary. But for the past year, I felt that it was time to bring my personal brand out. And that
Mm,
was about me speaking. Like, I have the message. I have to get the message out and educate from my level of consciousness. And
mhm,
so what I found is that, you know, if we're just talking about Black people, but people in general, they're more tuned to listen to me speak about what it is and then my experience behind it than an Indian guru, per se. Like, I only joined it myself at the beginning was because of Oprah. And so it was
Oprah.
like, she's putting this message out, and well, if Oprah's doing it, then maybe I could try it. I'll at least give it a try. And then I started seeing results. So say, like, an example that just happened maybe 2 months ago. Um, I have a friend. She's the director of the health department in Virginia, in Norfolk. And she's Indian, and Norfolk is predominantly low income Black. And so she knows my story. She asked me to come out to do a talk to her staff, and just kind of tell my story and how meditation has helped me. And I mean, it was, for me, it was fun. It was like I was in there speaking to a lot of my aunties and cousins,
Mhm.
and they related to me.
Yeah.
And so just having the story of where I was before, where I am now, and then knowing what helped me, the tools that helped me get there. This is what I'm spending my time doing now, is getting the message out. So it's like 25 people from the health department that are looking to learn meditation now. About 20 of them just Black women, 40, 50 years old. And just having that from where I was and what I'm doing today, it feels good inside that I'm able to kind of show others or bring others along, guide them from darkness to light, you can say. And that's what's I've spent most of my time doing now. That's kind of like what my mission is. My spa, it has its own mission. It's doing its own things. But what I offer at the spa is more relaxation based. And I decided to go that route because honestly, opening up a business and just kind of giving people the rawness, it wasn't the best business idea. People will pay for 3 hours of relaxation than to pay for a lifetime of a practice that they have to do now. And so the public speaking, I think that's the big thing, getting on stages, getting in front of the audience, starting the social media. I'm not so great with that right now, but just getting the message out. That's what it is.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and you don't have any, you don't have any concerns or fears about speaking to any size, to any group, to smaller, you're like,
I did before until I needed to cultivate the message. So it was about the shame of what happened had already passed. And then I was already seeing the results. So it's like I was working with the media coach and a speaking coach on how to cultivate the message and actually get that out, whether it's customer acquisition or if I'm on major media, I need to have a message to give in that way so that people can relate, because the story is relatable. It's just how to get the message out, on those platforms.
Yeah. Yeah.
I like public crowd. I like in-person crowds more. The energy in the room tends to turn my energy on to a different level, and then people feel that. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So what do you eat? What do you eat?
I have an Ayurvedic diet. That means so Ayurveda's basic points are that our body is made up of the 5 elements. And so because everything else in the universe is made up of these 5 elements, depending on which elements are imbalanced in your physiology, then you should be eating foods of those opposite elements to balance your system. And so some principles that I go by, just because everyone's going to diet, if you're going by an Ayurvedic diet, everyone's diet is going to be different. So I don't like to get into the nitty gritty of the diet. Like I still eat meat. It's very rare. Like I don't eat meat for every meal. There are certain points of the day that I have larger meals simply because in Ayurveda, we're taught to live by the laws of nature. And so when the sun is most high, it's actually causing a better place to digest the foods that you're eating. So between 11 and noon, that's when I'm having my biggest meal. I'm not eating past 10 p.m. Because certain digestive channels in the system shut down during those times, and you're not able to digest or metabolize anything that you're eating. And then diet for me is also just not food. It's anything that we take in through our sensory perception. And so I use a lot of essential oils, even when I'm cooking. There's other aspects of sound, like sound therapy is also a diet for me. So I look at diet completely different than what do you eat? It's again, anything that we can take in through sensory perception. Yes.
Wow. So I've looked into Ayurveda, trying to find my own, like, what is my rhythm, and I've gone up and down in my weight my whole life. And so I've tried, obviously, you try these different things but I've always I always was trying to seek out ways that made sense, and a diet that observed our greater universe and the rhythms of our universe and our nature, right? And so eat right for your blood type was one that I did, because I'm like, well, that makes sense because it's my blood type, and there has to be a way that, right? you know, whatever with that. But and Ayurveda, Ayurvedic, like, so my dosha is like kapha. So that, you know, my, and I don't know if you can explain what a dosha is, but can you explain what a dosha is? Now that I brought it up.
So you said kapha. Kapha is an element of water and earth. And so again, it's 5 elements. So each dosha, there's 3 of them. The doshas would be made up of 2 of those elements. You have vata, which is air and ether. You have pitta, which is fire and water. And then you also have kapha, which is water and earth. One thing that I would like to say, because it's a confusion about which dosha type you are compared to which doshas are imbalanced in your physiology. So when I first,
Oh,
yeah, so when I first went to like the Chopra Center, they don't do what's called post diagnosis, which is the traditional way of learning which doshas are imbalanced in your physiology. They had us fill out a questionnaire. That's how most people are doing it these days. Honestly, if you don't have a traditional Vaidya, which is an Ayurvedic doctor, then it's hard for you to honestly know.
okay.
But when I filled out my form, I had a lot of pitta qualities. So I thought that my dosha was pitta, but those were my imbalances. I had too much fire element built up in me, and that's what was coming out as anger, as violence. And so once they cleaned the fire elements up, mostly with water and air, ether, then I was able to function as a normal human being when I got emotional. I didn't have to lash out on whatever that was. And so there's this misconception. What you spoke of, there are 2 words. They're called prakriti and vikriti. Prakriti is your actual, what your dosha makeup is. And that depends a lot on where you were born, the elements of where you were born, where the planets were when you were born. And those things are really hard to tell. It's
Mm-hmm.
almost easy to tell what your vikriti is, your imbalances, because
Mm-hmm.
you can kind of see those tendencies coming out.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I think we got more to talk about offline because I need a full diagnosis right now. I could keep going because this is just really helpful. I think, but here's why. You know, I'm joking about it, but the reality is, I think for the most part, most people, that's my opinion,
I get it.
are really seeking something. This one comedian was talking about, he says, you know how you have that forever empty thing that like only God can feel, that forever empty. And when he kept saying it, and I was like, stop. And then I was like, yeah, there's this thing that just feels like we're in constant search or something that's missing. And I think sometimes, and then we say, oh, it's as soon as God sends me my husband, I won't have that forever empty. Okay, as soon as I get this job, or as soon as kids move out, or I can go travel, or I can, and we look for things in the world to fill that up. And so my
Yes.
question to you is, do you feel that you have, like, is there a forever empty with you? Like, do you have that feeling that you're constantly looking to fill something up? Or do you feel that transcendental meditation and the ways that you live have you complete?
There's 2 parts to that. um, so I used to think of myself as like this restless seeker. Um,
Mhm.
and that's that emptiness again that was inside, especially from where I started with this journey. Um, and the things that I was trying to accomplish, mind you, I'm saying to myself that Jesus said I could do what he did or greater. So now this seeking is me doing miraculous works. How do I point of consciousness? How do I develop this level of consciousness that I can do these works of Christ so that I can show and bring hope to humanity that Jesus' words is actually true. So this is my mission. This is what I was going through personally inside. And so it was the house first and the car and I was getting these things and it felt good. And then it was like, okay, what's next? And I'm definitely was the business and what's next. Okay, personal brand and what's next. I do have more of a calmness with that, because honestly, it's still there because I haven't reached the heights that I'm looking to reach. And so while it's there, I I found a path, and the path that I'm on, I can see the actual end goal. Where before I actually had the path, I couldn't see I couldn't see this destination. And so now that you're on the path, and the path the destination still may be a little ways away or far away, I
Mm-hmm.
can actually see it. So I know that I'm on this right journey. And that brings a sort of calmness within
Mm-hmm.
me, that as long as I continue to do the things that I'm accustomed to doing, that I will reach that. And I know what that is. And it's not the cars and the all of those things. That's the superficial aspect of it. And I believe everyone has it, even if you're on the journey.
Mm-hmm.
But it was, for years, it was the restless seeker in me, maybe for 10 years. And then when I actually found the knowledge, I would say, is kind of one of the greatest purifiers,
Mm-hmm.
because before, I just thought it looked like magic what Jesus was doing, but it's actually how he aligned himself with the laws of nature. The intelligence that created the universe now goes through him, and this is how he was seen as this great being. So now I actually know where I'm going. I have the tools to get there, and that just brings a sort of calmness within me. But
Mm-hmm.
there's still more for me to unlock and unfold.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, do you still covet those fancy, shiny toys? Do you still like say, I want them, but your perspective, your relationship to them is different? Or do you just
Exactly.
shut all that down?
Exactly. Um, kind of like in the like Buddha's teaching. It's like it tells, like, to get rid of all the desires, and this is how you're going to reach a state of freedom or nirvana. Because if you still have desires, then you can't reach this state. And while there's some agreement with that, I see it in the teachings that I've learned is a little bit different. That it's the fulfillment of the desires which brings you the happiness. And the only reason that
Mm,
the disappointment is there is because you can't actually fulfill the desires that you're having. But I don't have that trouble anymore because of the techniques and tools that I have. If I have a desire, I always see that desire being fulfilled. And so I
mm,
still do have those desires, that's there. They're not a covet of them, but they're a desire that's still there. And every time I fulfill one, there's a happiness, and I fulfill another one, and there's a happiness. And imagine if I couldn't fulfill those desires, how that would internally make me feel. And so I do have a little bit of a difference with opinion on the nirvana and not having desire aspects. And it's just because of the knowledge that I've learned from Maharshi and the teachings that I'm doing. So
I'm
desires is not a bad thing if you're able to accomplish them. If you're struggling and having not being able to meet them, then it becomes a stress in the physiology, which
yeah.
causes all types of mental, emotional, other aspects, and might cause you to do things that you wouldn't normally do from the morals that you live by. So
Well, speaking of morals, and maybe this isn't a real moral conversation. I don't think, because I'm in the Pacific Northwest. Weed and cannabis is legal. So, what are your thoughts about cannabis or ayahuasca or mushrooms or any of the?
perfect. Um, so that's how I got to Colorado.
Okay,
Um, I went to a school to learn how to grow cannabis back in Chicago. Well, when I was living in Chicago,
lovely.
cannabis was one of the things that I was doing. That's one of the things I actually went to prison for. And I just, when I came into Colorado 2015, and I'm saying to myself, like, if I'm still going to be in this lifestyle, I'm not going to put myself in a position where I have to go to jail for it. I can
Mhm.
go to Colorado. I came out here, I purchased a house, I got a grow license, I started growing. And so, um, I believe so. I'll finish this one thought. As I begin to start to fulfill other desires, then the actual desire for the cannabis thing kind of faded away. As far as growing and trying to make money, and actually don't smoke anymore. Um, it's reason why, not that it's not enjoyable. I didn't enjoy it. It kind of acts like coffee. Coffee is a
Mm.
nervous stimulant, and so it's stimulating the nervous system, where TM is doing the opposite of settling the nervous system down so that we can relieve stress. And so I was working against
Oh,
myself with this whole process. And there's some things you got to let go when you're trying to reach high places. And it
yeah.
wasn't the most, enjoyable part for me, but that's the knowledge aspect helped me to come to a realization where this is just something that if I want to reach where I'm going, this can be a part of my reality. On another part, I would say before the Jesus aspect was MDMA.
Mm.
So I was, again, prison, third time. I just got convicted for this. MDMA was not a part of my community.
Mhm.
I had a friend that
Can
thought
you
that
talk
because,
about what MDMA is?
yeah, it's a synthetic, and I'm not an expert with this. It's
Mm.
a synthetic form of a drug, you would say. People call it ecstasy. It's like the pure form of ecstasy, with not mixed with anything else.
Okay.
Um,
Mhm.
and a friend of mine thought, just because of the trauma that I had went through, that this would be something to help ease the trauma. Now in Colorado, they're like using it for trauma work. Like it's a thing,
Mm.
same, but 2010 was when this happened for me. And what I experienced was something bigger than myself.
Mm.
Um, that God spoke through me, and I knew it was something bigger. This is what sparked me to start seeking the religion aspect of things.
Mm.
I honestly probably wouldn't have taken that route if it wasn't for the one experience that I had with MDMA.
Mm.
And only did it that one time. And then I end up going to prison for the third time. And so now I'm in prison, and I'm like, I need to know what happened. And so this is what, now I'm like deep in the scriptures, and I'm trying to
Mhm.
figure this thing all out. Um, Fast forward 5 years, I met my wife out here, um, cannabis. She's business management, hospitality. She was throwing cannabis events, and I was coming out here to grow cannabis. So we kind of connected during the 420 event, and things kind of took spark from there. She came out to Chicago to see me. This is kind of like after we met, and she introduced me to mushrooms. Now this was
Mm.
the like my second mind altering, you say, experience,
Yeah.
and this kind of brought a realization of what happened during this time with MDMA was actually happening again with this substance. And so now I'm relating what the plant or medicine or is
Mhm.
doing to the body, that's helping the mind to see the non-physical aspects of reality.
Yeah.
Um, so from there, I think maybe I did maybe 6 or 7 times mushrooms, and it was all over. Kind of like I would do it 3 months later, I would do it again, and kind of integrate what I had been experiencing during my journey of the spiritual growth.
Mhm.
And it got to a point where like I was succeeding in life, things was happening, and I heard about ayahuasca. I think it was Joe Rogan, maybe.
Mhm.
And he was talking about this guy that was um, in South America, a shaman in the middle of the rainforest in Tarapoto. And I reached out to him. I never got a response back. And then maybe 6 or 7 months later, he just emailed me back and was like, if you want to come out for an isolation diet, is what he called it, then this is what it would be like. We're in Tarapoto. You would come out for 7 days, I believe it was. And me and my wife was like in the middle of the rainforest. We took like a flight into Tarapoto. We drove about 2 hours to this river. We got in a little boat. I felt crazy because I got like luggage. I got like 5 bags. I'm in this little boat going into the middle of the rainforest, and we was just there. And that's when my first experience with ayahuasca was. It was my only experience. Uh, it
Would you ever do it again?
no, pardon my French. I was going to say something, but it just scared. What happened for me was my soul literally detached from my
From my body.
physical,
Oh.
and you don't know how much you love your body until
Uh-huh.
you're not in it, right?
Yeah.
And while this is what I've been looking for through meditation, through these different aspects, it was a forceful experience where I was forced out of my physical form, and it wasn't pleasant for me at
Yeah.
all. And every time I would relax, then I would leave again. And I just got
Ooh.
up and started like walking through the rainforest, middle of the night. Nobody, like I don't even know what was there and around. But that was the only way that I could stay in my physical form. That gave me an understanding of the
Wow.
physical and non-physical. And what I was internally hearing was the techniques that you've learned will get you to where you're going, but it's a gradual process. It's a process that can be integrated, where this forceful experience is not something that you really want.
Right.
But again, if I didn't have the first experience with MDMA, I honestly probably wouldn't be on the path that I'm on,
Mm-hmm.
because it showed me something that was greater than myself.
Yeah. Wow.
That's my experience with those.
Wow. What a journey. So we're winding down here. I have 3 more questions.
Okay.
First question is this is a 1 and a 2. Do you coach people? Do you work with folks? And where would I begin? Where
Yep.
would I begin? Who do you look for, and who looks for you?
Yep. So I don't necessarily coach, I advise.
Okay.
So there's about 15 different techniques, or we call them technologies. They're consciousness based. Transcendental meditation is kind of the core of those. And then there's about 14 other ones that I've learned and accumulated during my bachelor's degree, other studies, all kind of in Maharshi's teachings that I can advise people on. About half of those I offer in spa, like in location, and the other
Mm,
half can be more remote.
okay.
And so lunafloatspa.com, if you go to the About Me page,
Hmm.
then you'll see where you can actually click a link. You can sign up for a free 30-minute session with me, and we can kind of go over what that looks like and if this journey might be right for you. The
Okay.
people that I look for, honestly, are seekers.
Uh-huh.
But I'm open because I wasn't that at the
That's
beginning,
right.
you know?
Mhm.
So the people that's in darkness, who's lost, who might not have their way, or looking for their purpose, or just maybe have some type of sicknesses or things that may be going on. um, I'm open to everyone, but
Yeah.
my passion is with seekers, just because that's like my personal journey, myself. So
Yeah. Okay. Last question. This
okay.
is this is a question that I ask everyone. So on a scale from 1 to 10, 1 is, gosh, this life, it sucks. I want to do over. I'm ready to call it on this one and just do something different, do it over. 10 is, I can't imagine a more amazing, blissful, precious life. Like, I get to live this life. Wow. Where would you rate your full life? Not this part or that part, but where would you rate your full life? And if it's not a 10, do you know what would make it a 10?
Again, I'm gonna go with the 9. The
Okay.
reason why I'm saying, absolute, the life that I was living before and how I live today, absolute life is amazing. The
Mm-hmm.
knowledge that I've been able to acquire during this time, that our people as Black people don't have access to, or most majority of people in the world, where even if you start talking to them, won't even have an understanding of
Mm-hmm.
what the laws of nature consist of and how you can use them, um, to live a more efficient life and put less effort into what you're doing. So you're working with less effort, but most efficiency.
Uh-huh.
And the 9 comes in is just because, again, we were talking about it earlier. My end goal is to do these works of Christ or greater things.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not living there as of today. I'm living way past where I started. And life is like, I mean, I have a full staff. I can choose to do what I want to do on a daily basis, which is mostly hanging out with my son. He's 15 months now. So I'm like hanging out with him all the time. If I have appointments, I'm taking those appointments on. But there's a next level to where I'm trying to get to. And just because I haven't got there yet, there's this little restlessness inside. But it's a calm one because I'm actually on a path that I know that's going to get me to that point. I will be able to do those works. So that's the 9.
Wow. Courtney, is it K2? How do you pronounce?
Yeah, Ketu.
Ketu.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Well, thank you. This was everything I thought it was going to be and more. I will definitely make sure to leave links to your website, and just so that people can find you. I will be reaching out to you. I still have so many questions, but thank you so much. And I just want to really, really acknowledge. So many of us see a version of ourselves that seems way over there, right? And the gap, and we have in our minds the things that I will need to do and to be and to let go of and to figure. I can't get over there. And so I really appreciate, just you are a demonstration of somebody, because a lot of us who think about, wow, that's a huge vision of where I want to be. A lot of us aren't sitting in a jail cell at the time when we get to that. So I can imagine like being there and what's around you and having to first transcend above what's around you to get your mind there. Right. Yeah. But then actually take the steps, which probably felt like little tiny baby steps at the time, but take the steps to get there and be an example of that and sharing that for folks. It's not really about the victory. It's about the process and the things that you had to transform, to let go of, to become, to commit to be there. So I just wanted to just leave on that note and commend you for that.
Thank you.
I lied. I got one more question. What do you like best about yourself? What's your favorite thing about yourself?
It's a swag that I have.
Okay.
That came from those streets of Chicago that I can utilize today, because you think of a meditation teacher, you have this stereotype of what that looks like, but to be able to carry my past, my family, that presence, it's an energy that's inside that people feel me when I'm in the room, and I get to use that to help other people transcend what that is. That's my superpower right now.
All right. I received that. Thank you so much. And definitely would love for you to come back and visit.
Thank you. It was a pleasure. A real honor to be on your show today.
Thank you. Hey everyone, I hope you enjoyed what you heard today. If you did, please click the small bell and become a subscriber and join me in spreading the message of grace.